Hello everyone, it's Jack again. So you may have seen the title, you'll probably know what this is about. So I did an argument, an internet argument I got into a while ago, a video with a guy called Terminal Stillness, or Mike Penna as he was known. And it was just this big long drawn out argument about Xion and Vanitas from Kingdom Hearts and their identity and connection, or lack of thereof, and therefore, and so on and whatever. So yeah, that argument took a long time to get over, and yet people seemed quite fond of it. I got a pretty good reception to it. People enjoyed hearing me argue with people, so yeah, that was fun, I guess. So yeah, I'm doing it again, with a different argument with some different people, so that's the gist of it. Now, this is not like the last one with Mike Penna, in the sense that it's not this big, long, drawn-out thing or deal between two people, which eventually reached a point where I wanted other people to weigh in on it. This isn't like the last time, when I actually made the whole video in the first place because I wanted other people to give in their opinion to help end the argument, and because it was kind of interesting to begin with. This is just a case of me getting into an argument with some people, a group of people, really. I decided, with this argument, it was kind of interesting. There was some good points raised, and I thought it was worth sharing. So, because people enjoyed the last argument and were willing to see more opinions bouncing off each other like that, I'm going to make another one with these guys. There's no urgency here, and yes, it's a Kingdom Hearts argument, so non-Kingdom Hearts fans, leave the room now. This video is not for you. I'm sorry, don't worry. I'll get you another video next time, don't worry, it's cool. So, that's pretty much all there is to say for introducing, I guess. Apart from that, the fact that this took place on one of my videos, I won't say which one, but a guy left a comment about Kingdom Hearts, which I replied to, and then someone else replied to, and a little reply chain went on, and was a chaining. So, here we go. Shall we just get into it? We'll just get into it. Now, while I wasn't actually fond of the voice I did for Mike Penna in the last argument, I'll still do the voice thing, alter my voice a bit for the other people, just so, you know, to distinguish them, and that's, you know, what I'm going to do. And also, par for the course, as with my channel, I'm going to take the more dodgy language and tone it down, censor it a bit, just because that's what my channel's about. I don't want to bring any nasty words to the table, so yeah, par for the course, let's get on with it. So the initial comment was left by Godkiller97, and this is his comment. I fell in love with the first Kingdom Hearts game, and still to this day consider it one of the best games ever made, and arguably the best game ever made. Superb storytelling. I am saying this as someone with an English major. Engaging gameplay, optional things that just add flavour to each world, adult motifs conveyed with childhood heroes and tragedies, and a mystique about the characters and settings that made you love that you didn't know any more than a vague backstory or things that were other words implied, which, by the way, the game had fantastic environments, especially Hollow Bastion. To say the least, the first installment of the series was an absolute masterpiece, and I felt as though every other game fell short in these aspects, and their retcons actually sullied the original. Aside from every other game having cheap, quality combat system, overhyped abilities and gameplay for both you and your opponent, story elements that were lazily thrown in there's a number of inconsistencies and poor writing in the later installments of the series. Calm and Kingdom Hearts 2 are my exceptions, and are actually quite good, and are just lackluster. They not only fall short of what the original was, but even as independent games taken for what they are, I just don't feel as though they're very good. Each game follows the same formula of developing plotline, and it's all cheap trivializes other aspects of earlier games. I mean, Kingdom Hearts 2 had a few inconsistencies that sort of irk me, but games like BBB, DDD, 358 over 2 days, and Coded all follow this trend. Can't get into too many specifics in a YouTube comment, but I feel like the entire series has to be completely redone starting from everything after the first game, because it's definitely lost its touch. There's a reason why the original game has been an icon in gaming for over a decade, and was played by almost everyone, and why all the other games have not claimed the same praise as gaming icons and have a consistently falling off fan base. This series needs to be redone. Original was ineffably amazing. Calm and Kingdom Hearts 2 were great. Kingdom Hearts 2 did have some plot issues that should honestly have been polished a bit more. Seems like the development team didn't even bother to replay the first game to avoid inconsistencies. But everything else was just bad. I had high hopes for BBB when I got that secret cutscene, when I beat Kingdom Hearts 2 and was waiting for it. I always checked for new information regarding it, but by the time I got there, the other games soured my taste for the series, and topping it off with how BBB was executed makes me almost not even want to try Kingdom Hearts 3. I will, but I expect for the same things that I've been playing, just on a console this time. Okay, so voice sounded a bit American there. I don't know if I intended that, but okay, I'm going with it. So, yeah, you get the idea. He's not a big fan of the series following Kingdom Hearts 1 and various complaints, so yeah, I replied. I love Kingdom Hearts 1 as well, though I wouldn't call it the perfect masterpiece. It's still a fantastic game and has a lot of nostalgia points, but it does have a few flaws that don't escape my notice these days, but I'm happy to overlook them. On the rest, we completely disagree. I personally prefer Kingdom Hearts 2 to Kingdom Hearts. It has a few flaws in its gameplay, definitely being a bit too easy, which hopefully Critical Mode and a new secret boss will mitigate in 2.5. Despite those flaws, it's easily the most fun to play with the best combat system, best and most varied gameplay. I have next to no problems with the story or writing. It's my favourite game in the series. Chain of Memories is a good game too, but it has a few things holding it back gameplay-wise. Story-wise, I love what they did with the series and the characters. It's a fantastic entry in almost all aspects, the exception being Marluxia. He's a really poor villain. Weirdly enough, now that I think about it, the fanbase never really talks about this game. Birth by Sleep is... well, the writing's not great. Let's just get that out of the way. It's actually really sad when I think about it, because beyond their uses in the plot, it was a game that really didn't know what to do with its characters or plot devices, like the Unversed. That said, it was marvellous for its plot. Say what you will about the writing, but I loved the expanded lore on the Keyblades, the Keyblade War, the backstories of Maleficent and Xehanort, oh, especially Xehanort. He makes this game. And frankly, it's second only to Kingdom Hearts 2 when it comes to its gameplay and design, though its combat could use some work. It's one of the best games in the series. While Birth by Sleep had an excellent premise that was poorly executed, 358 over 2 days is the polar opposite of that. A game about Roxas spending a year working for the organisation every day while hanging out with a couple of friends after every mission. That's the story that has the best build-up, writing, and character development of the series. You can tear at its lackluster gameplay and control all you want, but the fact won't change. This Kingdom Hearts game may be small and lacking, but in those regards, it's the pride of the franchise. On second thoughts, Recoded isn't worth talking about. It's the one real example of a bad Kingdom Hearts game, and the less said about it, the better. And Dream Drop Distance is only behind Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 when it comes to its combat. Not entirely a fan of the Dream Eaters, but they were a fun and worthwhile experiment. In terms of story and writing, it's a very solid game, a worthwhile sequel to the series. So where am I going with all this? First of all, the reason these games have not been as iconic or successful as the original Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2 plainly have nothing to do with their quality. Anyone who plays them can testify to that. Rather, there is the first reason that they were not first. Kingdom Hearts and Kingdom Hearts 2 were the first installments for many a fan who entered the series, so they will hold these games in higher or at least more memorable regard. Second is the obvious fact that every other game apart from those two was released on a handheld. You will know as well as I the mixed reception this gets. Naturally this, tied with not being pure sequels, throws people off from taking them seriously, regardless of how good these games really are. Next to that, every one of these games has been expanding the universe in whatever way it offers. Days gives us more info on replicas, Heartless, and the organisation. Birth by Sleep gave us Keyblade Masters and various new aspects of Keyblade wielding in Hearts. Recoded went into a ton of stuff about Data. Dream Drop Distance probably went too far, taking on Data, Nobodies, Hearts, Dreams, Sleeping Worlds, and Time Travel all in one game, yet did an admirable job in giving and revealing as much to us as it did in as good a way as it did. And as a follow-up to that, there's even a good sequence to the way these things were given to us, such as spending an entire game on Nobodies living out their days together and seeing them act through the emotions of real people, including tears of grief and angry inner turmoil. Then in Recoded we learn of Roxas's pain that he has to share with Sora, which happens officially in Dream Drop Distance, culminating in the revelation that Nobodies have hearts. The biggest example of this is no doubt the build-up for Kingdom Hearts 3. Days gives us an unresolved problem with the forgotten Xion that still lives on within Sora, as well as some curious insight into Organization 13's secret reports that suggest not everything is as it appears. Birth by Sleep gave us 3 main characters whose fates have been left unresolved, the existence of a true Kingdom Hearts, as well as a coexisting Keyblade and Ansem's data that lies within Sora to be found in order to save the aforementioned heroes, Naminé, Roxas and Xion. Recoded did one thing right with its secret ending, revealing the characters will be reborn once their Heartless and Nobody are destroyed, so Xehanort and the entire organisation will be coming back. Finally, there's Dream Drop Distance. I don't even need to tell you how much that game did to set up Kingdom Hearts 3. So all in all, there's real sense behind every game. Nothing is slapped on, well, not much is slapped on, but that's always been the case, and everything ties together with a good level of order. I've never seen any major continuity errors and no real inconsistencies. It's not a perfect series, but it's a great one. It grows bigger and better with every installment. I await the future of it with open arms. Now, Mr. 97 did not reply to this comment, but instead someone else did, Fancy Nunya. They replied to the thread and I replied to them, and for the rest of the comment, the argument, most of the argument, it was between me and this person. So, yeah, seeing this reminds me, and therefore I should tell you, I'm trying to present this argument impartially in this video. I'm not trying to be biased, I'm not trying to paint anyone to look like the enemy, so keep me right on that. Don't let me, fall into that trap. If I do, tell me off, because, I shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that now, so that you know. So, Fancy Nunya said, I couldn't agree more. I was there when the original Kingdom Hearts came out and I loved it, but honestly the story is now just extremely convoluted, even by Square Enix's standards. Seriously, Disney is a money-grubbing, self-promoting hooligan that always ruins its greatest works with straight-to-DVD crap releases. And Square Enix loves to make emo plotlines that make no logical sense other than, we can do that in anime. So they got together and made a baby. I'll always love Kingdom Hearts because of its beautiful artwork and the way it broke ground gameplay-wise when it first came out, but unlike everyone else who loves it no matter what because of the nostalgia factor, I see it for what it's become, and it's a shame. I see it for what it's become and I embrace it, because it's only grown bigger and better. The series is convoluted, but it has some very powerful themes and messages, some incredible characters, and a wonderful story. I wouldn't give that up for the world. I think the messages are the only reason people love it so much. It gives you the feels, even if the storytelling is orbiting somewhere around Mars. Dude, I just said I love it for the story and characters, which I know for a fact people would back me up on. I'm not a dude, I'm a woman. Yeah, okay, just for the record, when I said dude, I was just saying it like generally, wasn't specifically calling this person a dude, but okay. And of course they would. That's what fanatics do. But the fact is, even if you love the story for what it says and how it makes you feel, it's not good storytelling from a technical standpoint. Ask anyone to explain the story of Kingdom Hearts and they have to go back and explain a million different things, or it doesn't make any sense. And the things that they have to explain don't make any sense unless you watch anime, because that's just how anime does things when they tell stories. In anime, people can jump way higher than human beings should be able to. Not because in the world the story is set in is magic, but because it's anime. People can do things in anime simply because they feel extremely happy or extremely sad, and girls who are 5 feet tall with hardly any muscle mass can use weapons that are as big as they are. It makes you feel good and it's pretty and artistic, but it's not good storytelling. Now I'm going to add in here that this person posted 2 comments in a row, followed by the next one, and because of them doing that, because of the way I was replying with the comment system, I didn't actually read that comment. I didn't see that comment until much later, so I didn't reply to that comment at all in any way because I didn't actually see it. The only comment I replied to was the next one. So I guess since I never got to reply to it, I guess I might as well just say a couple of things now, just because I do want to say something about this. It's not really about Kingdom Hearts, this comment, honestly. Mostly this is just a bunch of complaints against anime as a whole. And I'm a very casual anime watcher. I've only seen a few anime and I enjoy it. I think it's great. But because I do, I think I should, say in defense of anime that this is a bit unfair to claim this about anime. But then the argument goes into a bit more detail about anime later on. But basically, I do disagree with what the person's saying here. I mean, yeah, you get animes like Tengen Toppa, Gurren Lagann, Naruto, and Dragon Ball Z that can be very emotionally driven rather than logically or scientifically driven. Actually, Dragon Ball Z, weirdly enough, doesn't do that as much as, well, anyway, again, aside from that's the entire point I'm trying to make. There's different anime that do different things, and generally it does seem to be vague rules about the universe that let characters do things which shouldn't be logically or scientifically possible just because they want to, or because there's emotion behind it and because it's awesome. And yeah, sometimes they do just do that. The rule of cool, they do it just because they can, and that's a bit of a flaw sometimes, but at the same time, sometimes it works really well. In the case of Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann, the universe literally runs on that power, and I think I think it basically depends on the author of the manga, the author of the anime, how they handle that, because, as I said, it's not a thing that's strictly tied to the entire medium, and it's not something restricted to anime either. Sure, sometimes characters jump a bit ridiculously high, and they shouldn't be able to do that, but how many cartoons have people done that? Like Western TV shows? What about, certain animated movies or comics and even video games? Do people do that just because? I mean, when we go from a less real medium to one that's more animated, one that's more created, we do tend to take these sort of leaps in logic just because it's possible. And I just wanted to say that, just a little thing about defying the possible in fiction. It does tend to take bigger leaps in these things. I mean, probably books, literature probably lets people make ridiculous jumps because, well, it's a book, So I'm basically trying to say I disagree, and I don't think that's entirely fair, but I won't dwell on it too much, okay? So I just wanted to throw in a reply of sorts here because I never got to before. Anyway, I'll proceed with the argument as such from now on. So then Fancy Nanya also said, the best example that I can think of is, if you kill both the Nobody and the Heartless, they get restored. How does that rule make any sense? Because they said so. I replied saying, as me, the Kingdom Hearts guy who explains things, did. Destroying the Heartless frees the heart. destroying the nobody disperses the soul and body, where both reconnect at the place where the person lost their heart after a while and recomplete them. It's very simple, and it's something Square Enix have had in mind since Kingdom Hearts 2. Followed by getting hit in the head with a rock like Goofy did can kill you. Your heart can be consumed by darkness, your body can walk around of its own free will without a heart, and both of those components can be destroyed and you'll come back like nothing happened. But those rocks, man, watch out for those rocks. Bad storytelling at its best. There's a massive difference between having a corrupting dark energy substance extract and possess your heart, leaving your remaining components as wandering husks of your former self, which need to be destroyed in order to release said components, and dying. Death is pretty much the way it is in real life in Kingdom Hearts, but becoming a Heartless is a different kettle of fish altogether. Again, not that complicated. By real logic, yes, it is complicated. I think you're just so used to anime logic that you accept it without question, but to each his own. You like what you like, and that's not a crime. I never expect fanatics to look at something they like objectively. I hope you like Kingdom Hearts 3. Have I just been called a fanatic? So Ezra replied saying, I'm not a fanatic. I just understand what I'm talking about. Explain how Kingdom Hearts has a bad story and I'll accept defeat. All you've done is try to poke holes in its logic, which I've promptly filled in with facts and established rules of the universe disproving your issues. Do you have a legitimate complaint? Also, forewarning, and kind of foreshadowing I suppose, you're going to hear that term anime logic a lot. However, let's just move on with the argument, as Fancy Nunya then proceeded to reply with 4 comments in a row. And I sent a comment response with like different paragraphs responding to each individual comment. So rather than go through each of the 4 comments and then go through my entire comment, to make things a bit more structured so you can easily see what I'm saying, I'll do this one at a time. So the first comment was, it explains itself. The fact that you don't see what I mean just means that there's no point in explaining it to you. How does it make sense that the body can move around of its own accord as a nobody when you lose your heart, and the heart becomes a monster? Then when it gets destroyed, the soul, the heart, and the destroyed body just rematerialize like nothing happened. But you get one bump on the body and you die? Logically, that makes no sense. So, I replied, you're trying to apply real-life physics and logic to a series that has from the very beginning established itself as its own universe with its own rules, which you don't sound like you're even trying to understand. For example, a heart in real life is simply an organ in our bodies pumping blood. In Kingdom Hearts, a heart is more like a mix of physical and spiritual, being this almost ethereal part of our anatomy that allows us to form bonds with people and feel emotions, to laugh and cry, to care and hate. This much is set up in the first game and remains consistently true throughout the series. You also don't understand what happens when a Heartless or Nobody is destroyed. Heartless are monsters of darkness containing hearts within them. Destroying them with the Keyblade dispenses the darkness and destroys the Heartless, not the heart. The heart, which is the captive physical component of the person, is set free, where it drifts around until its corresponding other half is rejoined with it, which they will be drawn to like magnets. As for the Nobodies, when they are destroyed, they are told that they disappear. What actually happens is more like an atomic reconstruction. When you knock down a snowman, the snow is still there. When you melt ice, the water is still there. It's like that. The nobody vanishes, but the actual body, mind and soul that make it up are put in a state similar to the freed heart of a Heartless, until, as stated prior, they rejoin. And if I were to hit you over the head with a big rock, wouldn't you die? Death is death in Kingdom Hearts. We're just yet to witness it, save for perhaps Ericus in Birth by Sleep and a few Disney villains. Besides, Goofy didn't actually die from that rock to the head, so it's not like that's even a real example. So then there was the second comment, and that's only one example. There are plenty of times like that in Kingdom Hearts, and all anime and logic isn't the only reason it's bad storytelling. Because if the former is true, then you want to live forever, just let yourself be overcome by darkness and tell someone to kill off your Heartless and your Nobody. It takes all the consequence out of the whole thing. Why should Sora care if Heartless hurt people if it's that easy to be restored? It's like having a cold. So I replied with, second comment, you're telling me being a Heartless isn't a big deal? You're saying having your heart ripped out and locked in a mindless beast which can only be completely eradicated by a specific weapon that few wield and may be controlled by malicious individuals, as you have no control over it, which will attack innocent people to steal their hearts and put them in the same state, while you might become an emotionless being that has a very, very slim chance of having a completely human body, is A-okay? I thought you liked logic. Anyway, you're dismissing the chaos and pain that is caused by these problems too flippantly. Sora's one guy and there's only so much he can do. The Heartless are a clear problem to be sorted out, not toys to play with. Funnily enough, your idea of experimenting with the process to obtain immortality, or at least longer life, since that's not possible as long as you grow at heart, which, unless you don't want a normal life, is bound to happen eventually, is something that is explicitly carried out by the main villain. Xehanort actually counts on the fact that if his Heartless and Nobody are stopped and destroyed, he'll still come back to carry out his plans. He's extremely prepared. Now for the person's third comment, we go into a script. So, me say, "Oh crap, I let darkness in my heart again," calls up the stairs. "Hey Mum, can you kill my Heartless and my Nobody for me? I have a test on Monday." So, I decided to reply in kindness, in response, you know what I mean. So Mother says, "I can't. I have no idea which Heartless is yours. I don't have a Keyblade and I have no idea if you'll even create a Nobody, which I might have to destroy too. But if you do become a Nobody, you'll still have your mind, so you can still do your test that way. I mean, assuming your Nobody forms, and then forms conscious thought with all of your memories and time for it. Of course, even if I did destroy your Heartless with a Keyblade and then destroyed your Nobody, which is easier said than done, it'd still take a while for you to reform, and I have no idea when that'd be. At least you've clearly been studying math instead of paying attention to the universe." Oh, me and my wit. So then the fourth comment, "That's the whole plot of Kingdom Hearts, made completely worthless." So I replied with the fourth comment, "You're not taking into account the main villain here. Xehanort has no interest in keeping people safe from the Heartless. He actively uses and manipulates the Nobodies into serving as his pawns to actually make more Heartless, and then prevents the Hearts freed by the Keyblade from returning to normal, instead imprisoning them in a fake Kingdom Hearts which he plans to use to completely possess 12 vessels. He keeps thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of lives in stasis, so he can use them as a power source. The Heartless on their own aren't too bad. They aren't even that much of a threat, without someone to direct them, like Xehanort, Pete, Maleficent, or any of the many Disney villains. Nobodies are almost human and have potential to be just as good, but both are controlled by various evil forces for their own desires, which threaten the stability of the whole universe, and that's the key threat that Sora needs to fight. That's the point. Hopefully that addresses your confusion. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask. So, me doing my typical Q&A thing. Sadly, I think I wasted my breath, or, typing, or, well, wasting my breath now, but anyway, because Fancy Nunya replied, "I've played the games where they established all these rules, and they didn't explain or say half the stuff that you did. You've just filled in the blanks and made excuses for their vagueness yourself. But whatever, I'm done. Like I said, you're just used to anime logic." Told you. The Kingdom Hearts franchise gets away with their vagueness and bad storytelling because people are willing to fill in the blanks themselves because they're so eager to see all their favourite characters in one place. It's like reading bad fan fiction. You know it's badly done, but you overlook all that because you've always wanted to hear a story like the one it's providing. So, yeah, they basically dismissed everything I said. And as I'm not really over that, and they haven't even, elaborated, which makes me sad, so. I replied, "These rules are heavily established in the games. It's where I got all that from. Again, it just sounds like you haven't been paying attention. How well do you remember all the Ansem reports? How much did you take notice of the many cutscenes that commented on a Nobody state of existence? Or even, how much did you take inventory of events and made the clear deductions to be made? Tell me, because I'm honestly baffled. What part of that do you think I made up? I will fetch whatever evidence you need, but these are the facts." If it helps, a few things I said were expanded definitions of the basic idea given to us from the game, as though I were taking the explanation of the game and breaking down every word like a dictionary. Not literally, but you take my point. I expanded on the facts to make them easier to understand. I am trying to help and I'm not making this up. I am not your enemy. And then 2 days later, "Are you just ignoring me now?" So, yeah. It depresses me when, I ask questions and people refuse to answer them. So, I'm okay. "My apologies, I never saw your second comment. It had been marked as spam, probably due to your habit of multi-posting. You really shouldn't do that. Just take full advantage of unlimited characters and post everything in one reply. I missed your comment where you said you were female for the same reason. By the way, I wasn't explicitly giving you a gender-specific nickname when I said dude, it was more like a generic exclamation. Anyway, the series is far more than an amalgamation of various characters. It's got a very in-depth story, which is very well told at points. There are holes and drops in quality here and there, but overall I think it's a marvellous franchise. Seriously, what are your problems with it? General retorts of falsehood lend you absolutely zero credibility. This is in your interests." At this point, someone else joined the party. A new challenger approaches. So, Fault Beluga Whale, I believe has actually been in a few of my videos. I Fault Beluga Whale. They jumped in and also replied to Fancy Nunya. And they said, All I'm saying to you is that it's a video game. Why would you want to play a video game that was super realistic? There has always been stuff like this. Just because the logic is impossible doesn't mean it's shiny. That makes no sense at all. If it was realistic like you're saying it needs to be for it to be good, then I would hate, and I mean hate it. Every comment you made about why it is bad only makes sense if it was a real-life scenario. It's not fiction. It's a fantasy game, for crying out loud. Do you know how many things have great, fantastic, and memorable stories not because they are realistic? I just don't understand any of your points. Not because I'm a fanboy or anything. The game isn't perfect. Nothing is. If I wanted a realistic story, I would go read a work of fiction, not play a fantasy video game. So fancy none, you replied. Finally, to this person, not me. Okay. I never said it was shiny. I said from the beginning that I love Kingdom Hearts. I love the artwork, I love the music, I love the gameplay, and I love the concept. All I said was that the storytelling is bad. Because yes, it can be realistic and still be good. Like Dragon Age. Dragon Age explains all its lore and everything perfectly, even though it's fantasy. While Kingdom Hearts storytelling depends on the leniency of anime and its very loyal fanbase allows. Again, blaming everything on anime. And I think I call that out in the next comment. Kingdom Hearts has nothing to do with anime outside of being a Japanese game with spiky-haired original characters. There are a lot of realistic anime too, you know. It's not one genre. You can't keep saying anime as an excuse to complain about the series. Yes, dumb apple, I know! I meant generic anime. Anyway, I'm tired of talking to you since you're gonna get butthurt no matter what I say. You're the one insulting me. The only butthurt one here is you. I'm just trying to understand you because nothing you say makes any sense. I'm only trying to help you. I know you think your complaints against Kingdom Hearts will rile me, partly because you want that to be true and partly because you expect that to be true, but the fact is your words could never carry that effect because they're blatantly false, as I've proved. The only thing I feel towards you is pity. I never asked for your help. I don't need help understanding how it works. I understand perfectly. Just isn't good storytelling. That's where I take issue. You're the one who doesn't seem to understand. If you think it's good storytelling, then you obviously don't understand what makes a cohesive story. And yes, I insulted you because you insulted my intelligence by trying to tell me what anime is and what anime isn't, while skating around my point. I know there are realistic animes, and you know that what I meant generic anime. You're just being evasive, which is an immature arguing tactic. Now keep your damn game and your weak arguments. When you learn how to look at things objectively, look me up. I think I made them angry. Sorry. Calm down now, there's no need for that. Let's take a look at that, shall we? Well, am I a doctor? The heck? So, the anime thing. I'll get that out of the way first, since it's the thing I care least about. Yeah, no. You repeatedly kept saying anime logic throughout this thread as though it meant something. Which anime? Which genre of anime? Did you mean the entire medium? If so, how does that work? You could be referring to a wide variety of rules or laws displayed across a huge number of anime. There's no such thing as a generic anime, which is why I'm sincerely convinced you don't understand. There's no evasive tactic at play here. You say you know what anime is, but you have not displayed that. It's no surprise whatever point you're trying to make is invisible because of it. Second, your understanding of the series. I had to explain to you how the destruction and recreation of Heartless and Nobodies worked because that's something you explicitly questioned up above. I did so through thorough communication of the process as presented by the games. That was one of many clarifications I made that countered your case, were completely valid, and are yet to be disproven. If you really understood that, you wouldn't have needed it explained to you. If I really was wrong and there was something I missed or made up, you would have pointed it out, instead of generically claiming that I'm a liar and refusing to elaborate. You still have not given any valid examples of bad storytelling. If it were really so obvious, you'd have no trouble explaining the problem. Yet I've simply justified and out-reasoned your arguments, and here we are. It's also worth pointing out that nothing we've discussed has anything to do with storytelling and more to do with universe building, making your entire argument appear misguided. Third and final point, me. I don't need to be asked to help someone. I don't care if you don't want me to help you, and I even find it funny if you hate me for it. Notice the word if. I'm not literally accusing you of hating me, nor am I expecting you to assume that. I've just learned you have to be clear on these matters. I don't think the one throwing curses around has the right to call their collected opponent immature, but call me what you want. The fact remains that whatever understanding you claim to have is not supported by the evidence. I'm willing to point this out to you, however harsh I need to be, to help you realise your argument's flaws. I mean, if you don't even understand why you dislike something, what drives you to dislike it? It's important to be self-critical, which thus far you have not been. You call me immature, but when your argument was proven wrong, you didn't own up to it. You didn't think harder about it. You didn't even move past it and bring up something else. You just turned your nose up and ignored it. That's a very self-destructive attitude to have. Speaking from experience, I know you're capable of being better, and I want you to be better. That's just how I am, and I offer no apologies for that. It's your choice. You're completely free to walk away and continue to hate Kingdom Hearts for some vague reason, but if you do, the truth is, and always will be, that Kingdom Hearts isn't the one at fault. It'll be your ignorance driving you down, whether you accept it or not. And if you don't, I guess that just proves my point even more. So as I recall, I believe this person replied with complaints about my use of the words like dislike and hatred, saying that they hated Kingdom Hearts, which they argue they don't, and I'm realising that now. I probably should have been specific and said disliking or hating the storytelling, not the series itself. Because sure enough, Fancy Nunya replied with, "You didn't prove me wrong on anything, and there isn't anything that I don't understand. You assume that I must not understand something because obviously, if I understood it, I would find nothing wrong with it. Which is exactly what makes you a fanboy even though you say you're not. And for the last freaking time, I do not hate Kingdom Hearts. I do not think the storytelling is good. Everything else is great. You uppity, self-righteous zealot." Uppity, self-righteous zealot. I want that on a plaque. Can I get that on my desk? I don't have a desk. I'm going to get a desk so I can get that on my desk. Uppity, self-righteous zealot. That's a good one. Once again, calm down. See, you're in denial. I did prove you wrong. What was wrong with my argument? What did I make up? What did I miss? However, I did not say you'd find nothing wrong with it. You assume that because you assume I think the series is perfect. Based on what evidence? Kingdom Hearts is far from perfect, and there are genuine problems with it. Your problems were not any of them. I mean, talk about Kairi's role, or time travel, or the writing in Birth by Sleep. Talk about the contrived excuse for Vanitas to look like Sora. Talk about Donald and Goofy not recognising Yen Sid's home. Those are flaws. Flaws I can identify with, regret, resent, and hope to see less of in the future. Rebirth following Heartless and Nobody's destruction? Not a flaw. It's clearly explained as I proved above. So please stop jumping to conclusions. Please stop losing your temper. And please think about what you're saying and why you're saying it. Now, I kind of realise now that I probably shouldn't have done this. I listed these flaws, which are flaws, and I don't disagree with that, but in doing so, I kind of gave this person another impression, as Fancy Nunya then replied, "So because I didn't give you one of your preferred examples of the storytelling being contrived and convoluted, you refuse to just agree that it is indeed contrived and convoluted? Wow, good job. Are you always this anal? That was the only point I was trying to make. Jeez. Anyway, if we agree, then I don't see why you were arguing with me." And that's the problem. See, this person, Fancy Nunya, then assumed that I did agree that the story is contrived and convoluted, which I don't. I think it's great. I think it's good. I think, despite flaws like that, I think it's still very well done. And yet this person is complaining about things that I disagree with and I think aren't problems. And just because, I listed these flaws, suddenly the argument's over? I guess I'm just disappointed. I'm just venting that here. So, yeah. Not to mention, like, every other issue that we were discussing, such as the whole thing about anime logic and everything, has just been abandoned. And it is quite a 180, but nonetheless, I replied, sure enough, lampshading that, I guess. "We're disagreeing because you gave an incorrect example. You still refuse to answer my questions. So you seriously still believe the Heartless Nobody Rebirth thing is a flaw? If it isn't, it isn't. If you do, why? This is quite the 180. I thought I was a zealot. Now because I've explained I don't worship everything about Kingdom Hearts, can't believe I had to say that, suddenly everything's a-okay? For the record, I still consider myself a fanboy. However, we actually don't agree. The storytelling in Kingdom Hearts is great. I love it. It's not flawless, as you assumed for some reason. But overall, I'd say there's a lot more good about it than bad. You yourself believe the storytelling is just bad, and ironically, I'm the only one to give a real problem with it. Once again, though, we haven't really talked about storytelling. The thing you hate isn't the story, it's the universe." And Fancy Nunya replied, "Establishing the universe and the rules of the universe so that they are understood well is storytelling." That's a fair point. I've got to say that's a fair point. Like, you just gave a perfect example of what I meant by anime logic. Vanitas looks like Sora because he came in contact with Sora's heart. That doesn't make much sense normally. Oh my gosh. Sorry. I'm going to keep going. But in anime, they do things like that. Oh my... Sorry. It works that way because the heart is emotion, and emotion is all-powerful in anime, and it makes things happen that wouldn't happen in any other medium. It's the same principle for how Nobodies and Heartless and everything else are created, because emotion, aka anime logic, and when they explained it for the first time, it was very vague, except if you already know that in anime, they do things like that. I feel like we've gotten nowhere. I feel like everything I've said has just been ignored. I feel kind of sad, and it's also kind of painful. I'm trying not to paint Fancy Nunya as the enemy here, but I can't help but state the fact that I completely disagree with this person. That's how I feel. I don't want to present them that way. I am reading out the comments here, and I want you guys who are watching this video to make your own deductions on who's right or wrong, to look at the facts, well, to look at the opinions, rather, to look at what's being said by me, by Fancy Nunya, and even by Mr. 97 earlier, and just, you know, come to your own conclusions, have your own opinions. So, based on the words, and not what I'm saying here, what I'm feeling here, try and, you know, have your own opinion on it. So, yeah. And I suppose I better continue the argument, so of course I reply to that. Not all anime. Some anime exist in the real world with real world logic. The power of friendship being a thing is also something that does take place in many Western cartoons, a few films, and, as clearly visible here, video games too. You can't just generalise anime. It's not a genre, it's a medium. When will you learn that? Anyway, I disagree. I see your point, but we're not talking about story anymore. We're talking about the universe. And that's the subject here. The universe. This isn't a real world universe. It isn't anime universe, a meaningless label. It's its own thing. Kingdom Hearts establishes its own unique universe with its own rules and is remarkably consistent with them. You can't fault them for that. I think you just don't categorise things the way I do, and that's why we had a misunderstanding. But essentially, we agree on the same things. And I said medium, by the way. Yeah, like that. Makes all the difference. And, you know, I thought I was the one who was using evasive tactics. I don't know about that. You say the Kingdom Hearts series makes no logical sense, I say it does. Sometimes barely, but it does. I have issues with the way some things are handled, and it's definitely convoluted, but I wouldn't call the series inconsistent. I think we disagree about that. I'm not sure what the misunderstanding here is supposed to be either, but we both love Kingdom Hearts, so there's always that. At the end of the day, I suppose ending a conflict over something like this is better than, well, conflict. And at this point, Godkiller97 decided to make a return! He reappeared after all this. Right now, right as it's ending. And, yeah, good timing, man. Good timing. Lol, no, the series makes no sense because it is inconsistent. It cannot even follow its own rules and makes up new ones with the bad plot devices all the time. I love the series, but it is poorly written. I love the first 3 episodes of Star Wars too, and those movies are awful. You know, it'd be nice if just once somebody gave a good example of what they're criticising instead of vague, spewing insults that make them look like a mindless hater. Unless you're the drone I'm taking you for, would you like to even attempt to validate any of that? As you can sort of guess, I kind of started losing patience because, well, you know, after all that, now he comes back with this. Like, this is particularly what he has to say on the matter, and so, indeed, he replied with, 1. When did I insult you? 2. The list of inconsistencies of Kingdom Hearts is so flipping long that I could spend half an hour typing it in a YouTube comment, which would look terrible, and still not be done, and be a waste of my time. You just seem like a fanboy who will like the series just because it's Kingdom Hearts, instead of actually critically looking at what the series does things poorly. English major right here. I replied with, you did not insult me. When I referred to vaguely spewing insults earlier, I meant the series. Should have been specific, but I didn't actually realise that at the time. I never accused you of doing so. And to make an excuse like that just evaporates all of your credibility, fragile as it was to begin with. I don't care what you think of me because it doesn't compare to how blind you sound. And I think that's fair. After everything I've said, after everything I've done, this is him jumping in and saying this. Does he really think he has the right to jump in and say this? I think I'm personally a bit annoyed by it. Just a bit, okay? I'm sorry. But that's how it is. So, yeah. And then, someone is thinking critically about this thing I like, so therefore their mentality is fragile and are blind because they cannot understand how this thing I like is so utterly flawless. Yep, I'm the blind one. Putting words in my mouth. Smooth. I suppose I must be the blind one though, because I can't see your argument. Oh, zing. Burn. Yeah. It was good to come back and do this, do another argument, but let's never do it again. So that is actually the end of the argument. That's where it all ends. And after all I've said, after all I've talked about, somehow I'm not being critical about the series. I don't know. frankly, that's how I feel. You can clearly get how I feel because I'm the one presenting the argument. And if GodKiller97 or Fancy Nunya or even Fought Beluga Whale, if any of those guys want to come and comment on this video and weigh something in, they are free to do so, and I'm totally fine with it. I did ask before posting this video if they were okay with the video being made, and as long as I didn't present anyone as the enemy, that was fine. So that's what I've tried to do here, and hopefully I've been at least mildly successful with that. So here you have had the entire argument presented to you through my voice, through my eyes, and I'm afraid that's you know, a limited perspective. But again, those guys can come in and weigh at any point. So you've heard my perspective. What's your perspective? You've read all these words. You've heard everything from me, my voice, my reading of this argument. So what's your opinion? Who's right? Who's wrong? Do you think I made the best case? Do you think Fancy Nunya made the best case? Do you think GodKiller97 has a good point, or is he just being a bit of a troll? Which I kind of think he's being a bit of a troll, but maybe you disagree and you say no, I'm wrong, I'm an idiot. I don't know. Again, I don't want anyone to be biased about this. But if you have anything to say, go ahead and say it, because that's the whole point of this video, an argument, to argue, to compare and contrast points of view. And if you're not cool with the conflict, then that's fine. Don't need to reply, don't need to come back at anything. Anyway, you just say what you want, okay? I've done my part. The video's over, we're done. I'm not going to drag this out any more than I have to, so with that, I will say